I've never been a drinker. And actually everyone respects that. Like nobody's like, come on, you're ruining the vibe. Like nobody's like that. You know, everyone's just like, do you want something? No, cool. Like, so I guess I don't know if it's always like that for everyone, but at least I know that in the environments that I'm normally in, everyone's very respectful. I still like hanging out with people while they're like having a drink, you know, like depending to a certain point. So it doesn't bother me. It's for me, that really is something that like, if you want to do that and you enjoy it, go ahead. As opposed to like smoking, which affects me because now there's secondhand smoke in my face. That I would rather you do like far away from me, but drinking, whatever, man, do what you want. If that is enjoyable for you, that's cool. I don't want to do it. I have zero interest in it. It tastes bad to me. It tastes really bad.
Hey, what's up, Vox&Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. I hope you had a glorious weekend. I most certainly did. This Vox&Hops episode is presented by Heavy Montreal. Heavy Montreal is Montreal's premier metal promoter. They put on a bunch of sick shows all year long, and they have some killer ones coming up, such as Bruce Dickinson doing his spoken word on March 23rd, and Dragon Force is coming through on March 31st. You should absolutely pick up your tickets via the link in the description of this podcast, because these shows are going to be incredible. I am beyond stoked to have Heavy Montreal behind the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I would just like to ask you to follow the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. But more than that, I'm also asking you to rate and write a review for the podcast. Now, why do I want you to do that? Well, you have to imagine that when someone is looking for a new podcast to listen to, what do? They scroll down, they look at those comments, they look at the ratings, and if there are a bunch of positive ratings and reviews, well, they're most probably going to give that podcast a chance. So by you rating the podcast, or even better, writing a review, you may actually be the person that helps sway someone's decision to become a future Vox&Hops head, and that would be something that I would truly appreciate. Now, on today's episode with Alissa White-Gluz of Arch Enemy, get ready, everyone. This is Vox&Hops episode number 331.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm with Alissa White-Gluz. It's very, very, very good to be with you. Obviously, vocalist of Arch Enemy. How are you doing? We've known each other a long time. Very nice to be with you. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. I think the last time we hung out or crossed paths was actually backstage at what they now call M-Tellus, that I still call Metropolis, at the Lamb of God Behemoth show.
Yes, that's right.
I believe that's the last time we saw each other. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a very long time, probably since the very beginning. And it took me over 300 and probably 30 episodes by the time this comes out.
Oh my God, okay.
To actually have a conversation with you. I was lucky to sit down with Michael when you guys came through, probably the last time you came through Montreal. Let's just jump straight into it. The shitty question that we all start with, because it's the world that we live in. How did you cope with the glorious years of 2020 and 2021, and hopefully not 2022?
Right. Well, I did probably something similar to yourself and every other musician listening, and I wrote a lot of songs.
Amazing.
Worked on a bunch of music, and just, did the only other thing we can do other than tour, basically, which is equally fun, I think, but wrote a bunch of songs, recorded a bunch of music, and just tried to stay sane, basically. Tried is the operative word.
Is that something that's mandatory for you, writing not while on tour? Can you write on tour is the question.
No, I am so exhausted on tour. I'm like, by the time I get off stage, I feel like I just got hit by a truck. I'm exhausted. I have so many emotions and so much adrenaline, and I can write lyrics on tour, but I can't come up with like melodies or riffs or anything when I'm on tour.
So talk me through a typical writing day. How much of a like work ethic? I'm looking for work ethic. Like, do you wake up and say, today I'm writing a song, and there's like a 9 to 5 schedule, or is it more of a spur of the moment, going off inspiration?
So I typically work 24 hours a day, and which I think a lot of people do, Recently I've been getting more into forcing myself to take breaks, which I think is really useful. So like doing mandatory like 15 minutes of just like go lay on the yoga mat and relax for a second, and or like go walk around the block or whatever, like things like that. I would love if my days could consist only of writing songs, but usually it's like, I'm going to write a song today. And then, oh, wait, an email came in. Let me just get to that. And then 17 hours later, I'm like, okay, now I can write the song.
But I'm just too tired. Forget it. I'll go lie on the yoga mat a bit more.
Exactly.
Very important rest. And I was
Yes.
expecting you to say days off. Here you are. You're like carving out 15-minute breaks. That's
Yeah.
rigorous. You have a rigorous schedule. That's even when you're not on tour. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, especially when I'm not on tour, actually. For me, I feel like tour is a little bit more of a break in a sense, in the sense that the core necessity of my existence at that moment is just to stay healthy enough to do the show tonight and tomorrow night and do the meet and greet, which hopefully we'll be able to do still. I don't know. And just get through it like that. But that's it, you know? And it's like the show just, I can't be looking at my phone or my email or whatever when I'm doing the show. So it's like, I mean, I could, but I don't think that would be very entertaining.
Yet. We can't do that yet.
Yeah. So that actually
So
allows me
productive.
to have that like meditative like mindfulness, because I have to be just totally mindful while the show is going on. So for me, it almost feels like a break.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a treat. We get to do fun things.
We do. We're very lucky. Yeah.
It will come back. It will come back.
I hope so.
Vox&Hops is all about hanging out with my metal friends, talking about their lives, music, and typically craft beer, but you are straight edge, so we won't be talking about craft beer. I mean, I'm curious as to what you just took a sip of. What are we going to be sharing virtually today on your side?
This is straight vodka. No. Yeah, I know nothing about craft beer, like less than nothing, like 0% knowledge. So this is water, and that's what I'm drinking.
I love that, and that's perfectly fine. On my side, I'm going to be drinking a very cool little tea collab that dropped earlier this year, or late
Ooh.
last year, actually. This is Cryptopsy and Pitch Black North, the Satanic Tea Company out of Calgary, Alberta. I love this. This is Lavender Black Tea, and they put hops in it, of course, because I'm involved, and everything that I'm involved in needs a little bit of hops. It's awesome. Nun So Vile, play on words there, with nun being N-U-N versus the classic album title. Love it.
And did you ever think of calling it Cryptop Tea?
Dominic, Alyssa's onto something here. Pitch Black North coming up soon. Cryptop Tea.
Yeah.
I did pitch him doing we have
Ooh.
Whisper Supremacy. I was pitching him to do Steeping Supremacy. I want that to be the next one. Thank you for
That's
taking
awesome.
some time with me.
I love decorative mugs like that. That's cool.
I need to
I'm
get
not
more.
really participating right now with this one, but that one is cool.
It's my Jack Skeleton mug, if anyone's wondering. I need more because I'm doing more sober episodes and I keep using it. So I have to vary my glassware the way that I varied my beer glassware. Because that's a problem. That is actually a problem in my house. I have too many glassware. Let's jump into the soundtrack of your youth. When you're growing up in your parents' or guardians' house, what music did your parents or guardians listen to? When you were not in control of the radio, what did they listen to, your parents or guardians?
Luckily, I have an older sister, so even before I was able to take control, she was. And my parents also have very good taste in music, so I was surrounded by just like excellent rock music from many different decades. So we grew up in the 90s, right? So we had some Foo Fighters, some Soundgarden, some Nirvana. I know not everyone loves grunge, but for me, I love it. But we also had like Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, King Crimson, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, David Bowie, Nine Inch Nails, like just a big variety of things. And like my parents like this music, like they have really good taste. So I never had to deal with that thing where you're annoyed by your parents' music. I just liked it.
Do you remember that first one that you stole, like the CD you dragged into your room?
I think it was Green Day, actually. Yeah.
Do you remember the album?
Dookie?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the first cassette that I owned.
Yeah, it was a cassette. Yeah.
That was the first cassette that I owned. It was a bootlegged cassette.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day. But how about the first band that you brought into the household? What was your first love that hypothetically irritated everyone else, but probably not because they actually like music?
I mean, Yeah, it's tough to say because my sister was so involved with music that she brought in so much music and like not just the things I listed before, but also like hardcore bands and
Mhm.
underground metal bands and things like that.
Would she be the first one that exposed you to harsh vocals?
It's very possible. It's very possible. I think she definitely was like one of the first occasions that I had to see that like you can be in a band, like you can just go do it. You know what I mean? Like when you see all these metal shows, like, well, first of all, I was looking at these like local metal shows, often for years before I went and saw like, an international touring band. And then when I saw like, the international band, I was like, okay, so like it's the same thing. Like you can just do it. Like you don't need like magic. You just make songs and then you go play them. And I loved going to all these small shows. And at that point in time, there was kind of like a lot of new metal. So there was like this new metal wave kind of rolling in Montreal. And I liked that. And then I started finding like some more punk bands and some more hardcore bands. Hardcore got kind of big for a second in that scene. But yeah, I mean, I think that the first music that I brought into the home that maybe wasn't already there was probably like some straight up metal, like Metallica type of thing, because that was one of the first like CDs that I had was Metallica. But you know what? We might have already had a copy in the house for all I know.
I love that. You spoke a little bit about it. I am curious. Do you remember your very first live music experience?
Oh my God. You know what? I can't remember the very first one, like individually. I really don't remember. I do remember going to a lot of shows, like sometimes up to 4 shows a week
Wow.
at like, like
Lenko,
Club
I want to
One
say.
and Lenko and
Yeah.
L'Alizé and like
Club One.
Licks,
Yeah.
of course, Club One. Yeah, like, yeah, I remember going to all these places and I just loved it because also I was at the age where a lot of my girlfriends were starting to like get fake IDs and go clubbing. And I did that and I was like, but wait a second, I hate everything about this. So why am I doing this? And so then I was like, I would much rather go to this environment where there's like something I appreciate. And so I just started going to a bunch of shows alone often. And in a way that was kind of cool because it allowed me to kind of network because I didn't have like a default person to just hang out with. So I kind of had to just go and hang out with everyone there.
I love that. They never returned the favor and came to a Club One gig with you?
You know what? I do have a video, like a VHS tape of my first show ever.
That's my next
at
question. I love it.
Cafe Chaos. And my girlfriends are there.
Amazing.
So they came to my show and they were the only ones there. So
I love it. I love it. That's my next question says, that first time on stage. Do you remember your first time on stage?
I do. Yeah, I really do actually.
The VHS helps, but
the VHS helps to refresh my memory, but I really do remember it. And those like 2 girls that were there are still my best friends now. And
amazing.
I think there was like one other dude there. And I think I know who it was, and I can tell you off air and see if you remember this guy, but I won't say his name on air just in case. But I think that was him who was also there. And I just remember I had like really long hair and it was red on one side and blue on the other side, like split down the middle, half. And I sang almost the entire show like in profile because I was so like nervous that I didn't like want to face the audience.
Yeah.
And I was just so nervous. So I sang the whole thing that way. And I still have that VHS tape. So if I can ever find a VCR, I can watch it and possibly show other people if they want to laugh at me.
You have to save it because it's going to be in the biography, the biopic.
Yeah.
70 years down the line. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Ben, was this Hollow Rain? Is that the name?
That was Hollow Rain. Yeah.
I can't believe I remember that just now.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I drew that logo by hand with a technical pen on a piece of white board from the art store, and I spent hours on that. And yeah.
I love that. You know, Flo drew Cryptopsy's logo too, right?
That's awesome. That's
something
awesome.
About the artists.
Hand drawing the logo like that. It's great.
Old school. Love it. Let's dive in. Straight edge. This is a sober episode for Vox&Hops, which I am very much enjoying doing recently. We can still hang out and have a chat as if we're sharing a brew, even if we're not, and I like that very much. So talk to me about being straight edge. You've basically been straight edge forever. I don't think there was ever a moment that you were ever not, if I remember back in the times that we had exchanges.
Yeah, that's right. I don't like alcohol, so it's not something the same. Similarly to, like, what I just said about the dance clubs. Like, I was just like, this is not my thing, so I'm not going to do this. And so I've never been a drinker. And actually, everyone respects that. Like, nobody's like, come on, you're ruining the vibe. Like, nobody's like that. Everyone's just like, do you want something? No, cool. Like. So I guess I don't know if it's always like that for everyone, but at least I know that in the environments that I'm normally in, everyone's very respectful. I still like hanging out with people while they're like having a drink, like depending to a certain point. So it doesn't bother me. It's for me, that really is something that, like, if you want to do that and you enjoy it, go ahead. As opposed to like smoking, which affects me because now there's secondhand smoke in my face. That I would rather you do like far away from me. But drinking, whatever, man, do what you want. If that is enjoyable for you, that's cool. I don't want to do it. I have zero interest in it. It tastes bad to me. It tastes really bad. So that's it. That's basically it. And I also, I never felt the need to do it because I didn't see it really bringing much benefit to my life. So I just never got into it.
How about the label of straight edge? Is that something that means something to you, or is it just the fact you just don't do this? Because there's a lot of people that actually it's like a lifestyle and they like to promote and live that lifestyle. Does that mean something to you in the way that it means to other people?
I would say like mildly, yes. I do call myself straight edge because it's easier just to explain to people what it is. I don't
2 words versus a whole sentence.
Yeah, exactly. Although I've definitely seen it like make people have weird reactions before, like, you say it and they just basically, like, the one scenario that I'm thinking of is a dude who was like, hey, can I buy you a drink? And I was like, no, I'm straight edge. And he just like took off, like just gone, which was exactly what I wanted to happen. So it was fine. But, yeah, I mean, it is a lifestyle, it's like a way of, for me, just really appreciating my health and respecting my body. But I know that for other people, they're able to do that while still enjoying a beer or whatever they want to do. So I'm not like offended or bothered if someone wants to drink. I think there's a big difference between those who drink socially and those who drink in like a serious problem type of a way. Like I've definitely seen that aspect of it also, which is something I really don't like. And I wish there was a way to cure people of that type of addiction. I really wish that was possible. It is possible, but I wish it was a little bit simpler than it is. Yeah, or just like a diet, like something, but it's very difficult. It's not straightforward, And so I really don't like when I see people I care about falling into that kind of a path. But otherwise, I mean, I definitely I connect with other straight edge people because we have that in common, but I also connect with, non-straight edge people. Yeah.
We hope so.
Yeah, because otherwise I would be like very alone all the time. So.
How about touring? You mentioned a little bit before that you could still party with them until it becomes too much. I've been on a tour bus. I know what it's like. Yeah. Sometimes it's fucking crazy, and sometimes you just want to go to sleep. And how do you cope with those moments?
Well, so I'm like pretty high energy, so I kind of like don't necessarily stand out that much against other people who are drunk because they kind of get more excited and I'm just kind of excited anyways. So for the most part, if I'm around people that I know and like trust, it's fun, like they're having fun, I'm having fun, it's cool. And they also, I'm in an environment where everyone is a professional. So they know that if they get to a point where they're not going to be healthy tomorrow, that's not acceptable. And it's not even anyone else that holds them up to that. Like all of us hold ourselves to that standard. And they also know that like singers need a lot of rest, So I don't really have any issues with anyone like being rude in the sense of like waking me up or anything like that. They also know I had really bad insomnia for a while, so it was just crucial that I tried to get as much sleep as possible. But yeah, like I said, there's some people that are like, they go too far when they're drunk and it's not cool, but that is not the environment that I'm regularly exposed to on tour. And so I'm really happy about that.
That's a good thing about being at the level that you're at. You guys can have your own bus where it's your own people.
Yeah, it's us. Like, we're like a family, right down to our bus driver. Like, all of us, we're like a family. So I really miss them all right now, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because you see these people more than you see any of your friends, really, most of the time. In a normal years cycle.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on buses in different situations where it's not just my band, and we're 24.
Oh, I've been there.
The 24 humans on a bus.
Yes, I had a 27-person bus once.
Oh my God. And not everyone is a part of the family. As much as you love them, they're not a part of the family, and they have their own interests at heart too.
Yeah. That's like, I call that part of the job, part of the kind of paying your dues aspect of stuff, or like the growing pains. You kind of got to work through that. I think it's pretty rare for someone to just be like going from local band to like, super comfortable touring environment. Like, I think you kind of got to carve your way in there. So, I've definitely been in that environment also. And all I can say is that somebody got pissed on and it wasn't me. So I'm happy about that. So
okay. Woo!
Yeah.
Strange question, shitty question almost. Would you crawl back into a van nowadays?
Sometimes I think about I was thinking about that just recently because it got so cold here. And I was like, man, I used to just like go in my jacket and boots and mittens and hat and scarf and then zip a sleeping bag completely over my head and sleep in a van in the middle of February in like the Arctic of Canada. And I was like, man, was I insane or just young? And I think it was a little of both. I feel like I'm like physically not capable of like handling that anymore because I'm old now, but if I had to, I would. And still sometimes depending on like the routing of a tour, sometimes it makes more sense to take a van. So we'll still do that sometimes.
A Sprinter.
But it's no joke, touring in a van is tough. It's hard work. It's really hard work. And American bands, like bands from North America, do it more than bands from Europe, and they do it for a lot longer than bands from Europe. And it's really no joke. So like, I have a ton of respect for anyone who has done that or is doing that now, because that's not easy.
It's you have no personal space.
You have no personal space. You have no bathroom. You have no bed. You can't stand up. You can't. You like
put your bag somewhere and then it's not there anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, but that's where I put my bag.
Yeah, totally. You're completely like at risk and exposed basically to everything. And that is like real dedication, And so I think that is. I'm glad that I did that for so many years because it allowed me to teach myself that I really wanted to do this. Like if you're willing to go through that, like you have the right attitude. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's jump into Arch Enemy, new material. 2 singles have dropped so far. Sorry. Deceive Receiver and House of Mirrors, both bangers. House of Mirrors, chorus section has a sort of like a scream with a note on it.
Yeah.
And I like that. And I think it's an interesting new voice for you almost, I want to say. I'm not sure if you've used that elsewhere, but I really enjoyed it. Let's talk about new stuff. There's new things happening. Is this leading up to a new album? It seems to be a big buildup, but I don't blame you guys with the pandemic and the uncertainty of when you can actually get out there to push an album properly. So you've been pushing this for probably 4 months up to now. And by the time this episode comes out, it'll be even longer. So talk to me about the build up towards something new.
Yeah. So, the way that people consume music is changing. The world is changing. And we feel like, I think probably every band feels that a song is a huge accomplishment and every song deserves to stand on its own, and it deserves, focused attention because that's what it gets when we're writing it and recording it. So we wanted to kind of like approach releasing music in a different way and showcase individual songs on their own and let them kind of stand on their own 2 feet. So like you said, so far we released Deceiver Deceiver and House of Mirrors, which are 2 very different songs, and both of them were very well received, which is awesome because we were working on this really hard through the pandemic so far. And yeah, we plan on just kind of like presenting our music to people in this kind of like new approach. For me, it feels really cool, and I'm sure that like you can relate to this, but I feel like when we play these songs live, like people are going to know these songs now, you know, like rather than it just being like one of the songs on the album, when we play it live, like they're going to sing it back to me, they're going to know the words, and that's exactly what I want at every show. So yeah, we're kind of just taking like a little bit daring but new approach to releasing music.
Is this leading up to more singles in this approach where it's spaced out every few months? There's a new single that's eventually going to go onto an album, or is it just going to be singles that are going to be paired together, or is it singles that are building up to a whole new album with whole new songs? What's coming up?
Well, I think by the time that this podcast airs, it'll be public knowledge that we have an album. So we've been writing and recording songs nonstop. So some of them are on this album, some of them are not. And we're just going to be kind of like allowing people to enjoy every song. Well, not every song, but many of the songs on their own before they get the whole album.
Okay, amazing.
So yeah, more singles on the way.
I love it. More clean vocals on the way. Is that happening?
Yes. Very soon.
I remember I wrote
actually.
You a message immediately the first time I heard clean vocals in an Arch Enemy song. First off, I remember writing you when you got the gig, and I was like, "This is fucking insane." And then I remember writing you, and I think my next message after was, "Finally, clean vocals, because you're so goddamn good."
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, you and I were like, I feel like if I'm remembering correctly, you and I were maybe like the only two or some of the like only ones who kind of did both, like clean and screaming singing. And I think you also do that note scream thing, right?
Yeah, I can do
that. So I've always found that you had like just an amazing way of like choosing what vocalization you wanted and then just affecting it perfectly. Okay. And so I mean, that's what I love. I love when singers are just like kicking ass at what they do. And so yeah, I mean, when I write a song, often the guitars are so melodic that I don't feel like it needs clean singing, you know? Like I feel like I'm more of a rhythm instrument than anything, but sometimes it makes sense, you know? Sometimes it does work. And so basically I just present the idea, you know, to Michael and Daniel, my guitarist and drummer, and I'm like, "Hey, do you think this sounds cool? If not, we can work on something else, but if you think this is cool, we can do it this way." And and so sometimes the clean vocals make it in, sometimes they don't, but I think that it's, you know, as long as it's done tastefully, I think it's like a nice tool to have. And a lot of people don't know I even sing like that, so I think for them it's kind of surprising.
I know you do a bunch of guest Vox. I was prepping for this and I was reading the amount of guest vocal stuff you've done. And in my mind I was like, oh, it's all gonna be clean stuff, but it's not. Half of it isn't.
Yeah.
It's interesting that a lot of people don't know that you have this side of you.
Yeah, like most recently I did this this guest vocal for Me and That Man, which was a song with Nurgle from Behemoth, his other project, which is like a really cool, like dirty bluesy project. And kind of the basis of the whole thing is like these metal musicians that you didn't think had this bluesy side just unleashing. And I remember when Nurgle wrote to me and asked me if I wanted to do a song with him, I don't think he knew that I did clean singing because he was like, "Look, here's the song, okay?" And it was literally just a bass line and claps, okay? Really? So like that's it, like a bass line, claps, and a harmonica. And so he was like, "These are some lyrics that I wrote. Maybe you can add to them." And like, "Oh yeah, Devin Townsend's on it too." And I was like,
"Wow.
Oh my God, Devin Townsend. Oh my God." So, okay. So he was like, "Look, it doesn't have to be good, you know, like just it has to be honest. And I was like, what do you mean it doesn't have to be good? And he's like, you know, it's like it's not screaming, it's like singing, but don't worry, it doesn't have to be like good. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna make it good. I'm gonna make it good. And
That's
that was
funny.
really, yeah. And so that was like a really cool thing because I just went right here into this booth and I actually didn't write anything ahead of time. I didn't like plan it out. I just let the song start and I just went. And the way that I recorded it, it's actually just like one take.
Amazing.
So it was just like the first most honest, raw, like interpretation of the words. And yeah, and then I went back and put in some harmonies here and there and stuff like that. But like that's I think the only time I've done anything like that. So that was like a really cool experience.
Very, very, very cool. I think that it's smart the way you guys did it with Arch Enemy, not having clean vocals at first. I think that the fans would freaked out. It was a very smart and calculated move to wait, to let them accept you, to be like, oh yeah.
Are you saying this from personal experience or are you?
Maybe. Maybe. But see, I won't sing clean anymore with Cryptopsy, whereas you can now.
But really you don't? But you have such a clean singing voice. Do you have? Forgive me for my ignorance. Do you have another project where you can sing clean?
I have a podcast where I talk to people and drink craft beer. But I always have lots of little things going on. But I do still sing.
Because it would be a shame to waste the clean voice, you know.
Thank you. But but it was definitely a smart move on your side to let the whole, you know, fan base mourn Angela, the passing of the torch. And then you come in and obviously you're going to slay it. And then over time, just dropping in these little things where you could actually sing in it. And it's interesting that you write a bunch of ideas and it's up to if it fits. And that's the perfect thing for any song, right? It's songwriting.
Exactly.
Does it fit for the song for everyone?
Yeah, exactly. And that's how we all approach it, you know, like Jeff could come in and shred a solo that you think requires 10 hands to do, but does it fit for the song? Because if it does, we'll use it. And if it doesn't, he'll do something else, you know? And like my drummer, Daniel, could play like a samba beat all over everything and, you know, but does it make sense? Like, you know, it has to make sense. We're all capable of doing a lot of different styles, but it has to work for the song. You know, the song is king. We want to do whatever makes the song the best it can possibly be. So that's the approach that we all take.
I was going to talk about Jeff. I had Michael on the podcast, and I just praised, like, how do you keep writing these riffs? You know, like how?
He's a machine. Yeah.
You're the catchiest riffs in the world. How are you ever afraid that you're not going to come up with something new?
You know, it's such a nice feeling to know that every time Michael wants to show me an idea, I just know I'm going to love it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he's just like, he's just a machine with that, you know?
It's incredible.
And I mean, he's so funny, right? He's such a funny person. I don't know if people realize how hilarious he is as a person, but he's a super funny dude. And yeah, he's really, really a crazy riff writer.
Let's talk about Montreal. We're both from Montreal, prolific city. This is a Heavy Montreal Presents Vox&Hops episode. You mentioned that you stayed in Germany in 2021. I was curious before sitting down. I was like, why do you still live in Montreal with the band being everywhere? I mean, California just sounds better for some reason.
You know, it does until you realize that like it's on fire and it's really far from Europe, like really far, like you're adding 6 hours to that flight. So you know what? I almost feel like I don't live in Montreal anymore because I really do not spend a lot of time here. I'm here right now. And to be honest, coming back, I had like a lot of anxiety just because like the restrictions are so crazy sometimes, like just right now with COVID and everything. And I think 2020 kind of unfortunately kind of tainted Montreal for me. I love it. I think it's an amazing city. I think it's beautiful. I've grown to appreciate it a lot more. With the lockdowns in 2020, I found myself exploring Quebec. Like, have you ever been to like Saint Flavie? Like, you know, there's like some weird little towns all along the river and like the St. Lawrence River. But it's beautiful. Like, it's stunning. Like, it's so beautiful. You'd think you were in like Finland or something. Like, it's just gorgeous. And so I really grew to appreciate Quebec, and I also fixed up my old bicycle and went on like 6-hour bike rides every day,
Amazing.
like around Ile Sainte-Hélène, which is where they have Heavy Montreal, and like just amazing, like these crazy bike rides. Like we have this glorious river that I just feel is so beautiful and so amazing. And we're just like this little oasis. We have Mount Royal. We have like, it's a beautiful city. It's full of culture, Place des Arts. Like it's a great place to live. But for 2020, I was all of a sudden taken from, the past 10 years of my life, which I would spend maybe 2 months in Montreal per year, to spending 12 months in Montreal. And not only that, but the US border was closed. So I was separated from Doyle, which is my boyfriend. So I was like feeling pretty isolated. And actually, that's when I wrote House of Mirrors, which is that's the sentiment that went into that song. And which is really cool that I've noticed that a lot of my fans picked up on and wrote me messages about. So that was like really cool to see that it translated. But yeah, I mean, California sounds better. I lived in Germany and I love Germany. But Montreal is really special. It's really special. And I try to pull myself away because it would be more convenient for me to just live in Germany permanently or to live in the States with Doyle permanently. Like it would be more convenient. But anytime I've tried to do that and like temporarily moved, I've been like, well, this sucks. But like, where's the river? Like, where's the culture? Where, it's like, it's a fantastic city. And I think that having traveled so much, I was made more aware of how actually cool Montreal is. We grow up in this city and we're like a little spoiled, like that we have all this culture and all this amazing food and like amazing, beautiful nature, but still a cool city and like the Champlain Bridge and the Pont Jacques-Cartier and like, it's a great city. And so I know that I probably should leave at some point just out of convenience, but it's really hard to leave. And that being said, I'm super close with my family and friends and they're not all here. A lot of them are all over the world, but my core that I've been friends with for like 25 years are still here. So it does feel like home.
I love it. I love Montreal, and you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Having toured, you really see, there's a lot of good things across the globe, but they're all here too. Like the cool things, the nature, the mountain. Mount Royal is so damn cool.
I was there today. I was hiking there today. And you know what? I was wearing this hot pink snowsuit, literally from the 80s. Like it's actually from the 80s.
I love it.
My mom found it in the garage. And so I was wearing that because I didn't want to be cold. And when I tell you that people were reacting to me the same way that they would react to like a puppy, like I had people like clapping and screaming when they just saw me walk by and dancing. Like they were so excited about it. And so, yeah, I was like, you know what? I love this. If this is how people could react to me all the time, that would be great. Maybe I need to bust this out on stage. I don't know. But the whole outfit just really made people happy. And yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's jump into your activism, something that's super important to you. Talk to me what this means to you. At what point in your life did it become such a big part of your life? And what message do you want to send to the world through your activism?
Yeah, so I think actually now more than ever, it's super important. Clearly, we're in a pandemic. I think you might have heard about this. So we're going through a pandemic right now, and climate change is real, and it's a big fucking problem. Can I say fucking? Sorry.
Whatever the fuck you want.
Okay, cool. It's a fucking problem, and so, I've been vegan forever. I've been vegan since I was a teenager, and I've been doing this kind of activism thing this whole time. Also, going to protests and doing marches and giving speeches all around North America, actually, and sometimes in Europe also. And I just figure if I can use whatever spotlight I have to draw attention to something that's like actually really important, I have to do that, I don't necessarily like crave attention as a person, but I know a few subjects that need the attention. So if I can direct the attention to that, just to even create awareness, just so maybe people are like, oh, well, what's that? And then maybe they look into it and maybe they think I'm stupid or whatever, but like, at least now they're aware of it. And so for me, that's super, super important. It's insanely important because veganism is something that encompasses so many different aspects. So it's obviously animal rights is a huge part of it. And for me, that's really important. I know not everybody cares about animals, but like most people do. You know, nobody really wants to be like the asshole who hates animals, you know? So animal rights is a huge part of it, but also like the impact on the environment and the climate is huge. And the impact on just your own health is huge. So I just want people to be aware that there is a solution out there that kind of actually solves all of those problems. And it's called veganism. And if they're willing to give it a shot, that's amazing. They won't regret it. And I also just want to clarify because like social media has brought a lot of attention to like animal activism and the vegan movement, but it's also brought a lot of attention to like a bunch of other random like trends and things. And this is not one of them. Like this was going on a long time ago. I've been vegan since the 90s. Like this is not new. It might be new to see it on this platform and like see it presented in so many different ways. But I also think that's really important. Like it's important for people to see like representation, you know, like they'll see like, oh, well, actually there is a dude who's really ripped and he's vegan. So I guess it's possible. Or there's a girl who has the style that I like and she's vegan and she's not compromising her style. Or, you know, like there's this athlete in, you know, this amazing professional football player and he's killing it and, you know, winning every game and he's vegan. And, you know, I think it's just really important to have that kind of representation out there so that people know that you can do everything that you want and you can do it in like an ethically sound way. So it's very important to me.
I love it. Jess and I have been vegan since 2017, actually.
Amazing.
Started off as a slowly cutting until 2017. We watched one too many documentaries and
there's a lot of that. Really good ones out there for that. Yeah. Yeah.
I was lucky when I started becoming a vegan. Touring was easy. When you started, it wasn't it wasn't as many options in every city as for myself when I started later.
Yeah, I mean, I used to, but it was still doable, you know. I used to take a cooler, and we had the cooler in the trailer, and amazing. I would go to the bar every night at the venue, you know, and I would ask them for ice to fill up the cooler. So I would empty out the old ice and put new ice in the cooler, and then I had like plastic bags, like grocery bags, and I would just put like, you know, like a 3-bean salad in there, and then like a box of pineapple and like just like all these little snacks, and I just had them in the cooler and I just like lived off of that for the whole tour. And I also had this really cool like pasta thingy, like this kettle that you can just plug in and it boils water, but it's like a bowl so you can put pasta in there and like make pasta.
That's amazing.
And so yeah, I was like next to the stage sometimes while the other band was on, just like making pasta.
Like me with my smoothies.
Yeah.
Let's dance into Patreon. You're killing it. I remember when you launched it. I remember knowing that you would do well. What's the secret? You know, you're at right now. I just checked. I don't know if this is the true number. I don't understand Patreon as much as you do. I'm sure. Right. You're up to like almost 500 people. It's amazing.
Yeah. What's the secret? I guess just like create what people value, you know? And so the reason that I love Patreon is that it's very encouraging as an artist, as you know, to have that feedback from people, which is directly saying like, I like this, make more of this, you know? And Patreon allows allows the fans to be like, you know how much I like this much, and they can put a dollar amount on it. And so in the past, fans were like, well, I'll buy your merch and I will buy a ticket to your show. And that is how I'm going to show you that I appreciate what you do. And that's still an amazing way to show that. But now we don't have shows, right? Like, hopefully not for long, but for the time being, there's no shows, at least not here. And there's only so many t-shirts you can buy.
Exactly.
So it's a way to be able to just really support artists that you love in a meaningful way that allows them to actually reinvest that and make more of what you love. So you're basically like funding your own entertainment in a way.
It's amazing.
And yeah, and it's just like it really makes sense to me because the amount of times that I've heard a song or seen a painting or something that I was like, wow, that hit me, like that really worked for me, and been like, how do I thank you for this? And like it's easy if it's like a street musician, you can put $5 or whatever in their guitar case. But when it's digital or it's online, you can just like leave a comment saying you like it. But like in order for people to make music, as you know, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars for dozens of people over years of their life. Like it is expensive. It takes up a ton of time. It takes a ton of like emotional concentration to make it happen. And it's actually, the current model is that we do that for free. Like we're like, you've worked a ton of jobs in your life. I've worked a ton of jobs in my life. I never like went to work at Second Cup at Square Victoria.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I never went to work there just to not get paid,
Yeah.
The most I've ever worked to not get paid was in music.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we all do. For like the first 13 something years, I was paying. I was going and picking up that Second Cup job to take the money to put it into the band. That's how you do it. And I love it. And I'm happy to do that. But at the same time, for a lot of people, myself included, because I'm actually a freelancer, if you want to continue to make music or to make art or whatever it might be, you like actually need to like buy the art supplies, or you need to pay the mixer, or you need to buy the microphone, or you need to pay the drummer. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's actually costs involved. And so Patreon allows me to actually just do those things and then take it, put it together, and present a music video for no other reason than I made a music video. Or, like it's cool because it's art for art's sake.
I love it. And are you prepared? I know that I'm prepared when I go back on tour. I had the podcast before the pandemic really hit, but it's really blown up since the pandemic has started. So I know that I'm going to go on tour and I'm going to get hit up by a bunch of people in each city that are fans of the podcast, that I know, that I've exchanged comments with. Are you prepared to meet your beastlings on the road? Because they know you very intimately now.
Yeah, and actually, luckily, I started the Patreon about 6 months before, or a little like 7 months before the pandemic hit. So I was actually able to meet a lot of these people already in North America and in Europe at the meet and greets. And I really love doing that because I know their name. You know what I mean? Like I know them by name, but I don't necessarily know them by face all the time.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes we do have like one-on-one chats, or they'll come on the screen during a live stream and then I can see who they are. But that allowed me to actually really put a face to the name. And I still remember them all like perfectly. Like I remember who Cedric is. I remember who Francis is. I remember all of them. And when I see them, I'm going to be able to be like, hey, what's up? What's up, Danny? Like, I know what they look like. And so for me, that's really cool because it's also, and I don't know if you still have this, but that feeling of like your first few shows when there was like 10 people in the audience just staring at you unimpressed. Yeah. I still have that fear, And so it's nice to be able to go on stage and see familiar faces in the audience and know that they love it,
The support crew.
Exactly.
You're still standing sideways.
Yeah, exactly. That's still me.
But you have been releasing a few videos, and you've been doing the songs of the seasons. Just recently, you dropped Folie à Deux. Lots of clean vocals. It must be freeing to be able to create and to just be this other side of you that has no necessarily any ties to Arch Enemy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I love everything that I do with Arch Enemy, and like my beastlings also know that Arch Enemy always takes priority. So like if I got to do an album or a tour, like there's a chance I'm going to be like a little bit less productive on Patreon, but that's also what's cool about it, like it's really me doing it. There's no like machine behind it. There's no like production behind it. It's like just me giving it to them. And so it is like really cool to be able to just put out something just for the sake of putting it out. Like there's no precedent, there's nobody reviewing it, there's no like label saying no, nix that one, or like, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing. Like it's just, I made this, here it is. Like it's really that simple. Like here you go.
That's only
I made
for Patreon, right?
Yeah. So actually the feedback on the first song of the season, which, like you said, is Folie à deux. So far, a lot of the people in the Patreon have been saying, like, you should put this out publicly. You should put this out publicly, which is also so cool that they want to be able to like share it widely. You know what I mean? So maybe down the line, I would consider putting it out publicly. But as for right now, it's just exclusive songs every quarter on Patreon. So you have to be a member to hear the song and see the music video. But you can be a member for any amount. So there's like no restriction.
It's
like
super reasonable too. It starts like at $4, I think.
Yeah, like you could put in $1 if you want. Like those are just like guidelines. But like you can really put in whatever you want. But the more, like, the higher the tiers are, like, you get all these other cool benefits with it. And so the song of the season is cool because if you are a member of like the top 3 tiers, not only do you get like a bunch of stuff, like, like we do a video, we do a virtual signing session, we do a virtual meet and greet, I write out lyrics by hand and ship them out. Like
So
there's
cool.
like there's all this cool stuff.
I have the worst handwriting.
Oh, I'm a kind of a calligraphy nerd, so I'm kind of proud of my handwriting, but
I write like so infrequently that when I have to, my hand aches. I'm so out of shape.
it's true. We used to be good in school, but now it's like everything's typed.
So painful.
But yeah, so like those tiers also, I make merch for each song, like based on the song, and then I ship them like a t-shirt in their size for free. So it's cool because for me, it's like a mini like album campaign in each quarter, and so I thought about this idea like last year. I was like, that would be kind of a cool way to release music, just like these little campaigns, and it just follows the season. And so that's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
That's very, very exciting. I personally hate shipping stuff.
Oh my God. Well, with Canada Post, if you're listening, what's up?
It's horrible. It's always the worst day.
Yeah, it's the worst. I mean, we really do have like a bad postal service here. Like I love Montreal, but the postal system is bad.
These creative songs leading towards the solo album. Of course, I'm going there.
Yeah.
You've been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah.
What is holding it back?
Okay, well, I haven't been talking about it for a long time. Other people have been talking about it for a long time. So basically, it was announced. What happened was it was announced that I signed for a solo album. So all I did was sign to do one. But I think a lot of people interpreted that I had an album that I was ready to put out. Okay. So basically, when the news came out about this solo album, the only thing that happened at that point was that I just agreed to do one. And then I was on tour for like 300 days of the year up until 2020. And so now it's done. But because now I've actually been home long enough to write the songs and get them done. And it's awesome and I love it. And that in addition to the song of the season on Patreon is like for me very satisfying, like artistically. And then on top of that, I have Arch Enemy singles coming out. So there's like a ton of music coming out. So there's nothing holding it back. It's done. But I need to be careful with how I release it because now there's so many releases happening that I want to make sure, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, that the music gets the attention it deserves. So
yeah. If you drop it at the same time as Arch Enemy,
that would be crazy. That would be foolish. So it's not going to come out at the same time as an Arch Enemy album for sure, because that's just not a good idea. But I will find a time to release it in a way that makes sense. And it's doesn't really sound like Arch Enemy actually. So it's still me. So it's going to sound a little bit like Arch Enemy, but it's kind of different.
Of course, I was going to ask what can people expect? It's different. What vibes? Where you hung out with Jeff for 3 weeks to write. Did you work with people from Camelot again? I feel like you did that for.
I did, yeah.
The song that just happened, the monthly one, the seasonal one.
Yeah.
So what can people expect? It's not Arch Enemy. It's you. What is it?
I mean, I feel like it's kind of an amalgam of that like really interesting place that you're at when you're a beginner musician. Because although I'm not a beginner vocalist or songwriter, I am a beginner guitarist. I'm very bad at guitar. And so when I'm writing songs on guitar, I have an approach that is probably totally wrong. And that's what I think makes it cool. It's
Well,
like
definitely
totally,
be different. It's
yeah, it's different. And so
unorthodox would be probably the better
yeah,
word.
it's like an unorthodox approach. I mean, I can still play it, but it's not my main instrument. So when I'm writing riffs on a guitar, I'm writing like a vocalist writing riffs on a guitar. And I mean, some could argue that that's kind of how Michael writes too, actually, because his riffs are so sing-songy. But yeah, so I wrote a bunch with Jeff, and I wrote a bunch with a lot of other people, actually, which I don't want to spoil and announce them all now.
Yeah.
But there's clean singing, there's growling, of course, other interesting vocal techniques, like you pointed out, like with like the note screaming and some operatic stuff. And it's like a heavy album. I don't know what genre to call it. I feel like when I'm writing like our first bios for MySpace, and you're like, this genre bending band is gonna blow your mind and melt your face, like, you know.
It's just you, which is
but that's
important
it.
for it to be a solo record. It has to
exactly.
be you.
It's
and
just
there's not
honest.
producers coming in and telling you what to write, what you're going to be.
Nothing like
at
that.
this point of your career. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's totally like self-produced in that sense. It's honest. It's exactly what I just felt like writing for this. And so there's like some prog elements. There's some rock and roll elements. There's a lot of metal in it, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with it. So I hope that other people like it too, basically.
Next big question is, obviously, Arch Enemy goes through touring cycles. When you drop this, will you tour the solo album?
You know, that was the intention, but it's so hard to make any concrete decisions on touring now because
of course,
you know, like
let's say a perfect world and there is no more pandemic and we could just go rewind 3 years ago and there was no pandemic.
Right. Yeah, in a perfect world, I mean, if it made sense to do it, I would totally do it. Like, I think that the songs are cool and I would like to see them live in a live setting. So yeah, I mean, I would totally do it if it makes sense. I can't even imagine, like, I just want to go back on tour, you know? Like, I just want to go on tour. So I hope touring comes back. I really do. Like, I haven't played a show. You said you played a show in December, which is super cool.
Show. Yeah.
I have not played a show since 2019.
Yeah. Oof.
So I'm jonesing.
Which is we're perfectly in sync. I typically go to how have you been filling the void of performing? You've been writing a lot, but there's that vibe that I get it from the podcast. I sit down right here. I get those same little butterflies that I would get before I step on stage. I'm like, am I prepared enough? How's the internet going to be tonight? You know what I mean? So this is how I've been filling the void of performing. How have you been replacing that vibe, that butterflies, the scared?
Yeah, that
I'm
adrenaline
chaos.
thing.
I'm a cafe chaos. I'm standing sideways.
Yeah.
but no, Danny's in the crowd and I'm okay tonight.
Yeah. Well, no, that was there was a show like that. That was okay, Cafe Chaos. Yeah, that was my first show. And then wait, I'm trying to think of what my second show was. I think Cafe Chaos is gone now, right?
Cafe Chaos is gone. We played a show together that was not very good.
That was like Alizé or Club One,
or it was Cafe Campus.
Oh, Cafe. Is that still there? Cafe Campus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so some of them are still there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've played tons of shows that were not good. So many shows that are not good. But, you know, like, that's, I think, how it goes. I don't know anyone who's played, I don't know anyone who has a 100% good show rating in their career, you know?
I have interviewed a few people where, like, their first show was like, yeah, there was 500 kids there.
What?
Yeah.
Who? Where? How? How did they do that?
Mike from, my brain's not working. Darkest Hour.
Really? But wait, but was he an original member? Or was it his first show?
I think it was his. No. It was his first show. I don't even think it was with Darkest Hour. I think it was like his first show. Yeah, but they.
Damn, where's he from? We need that. Maybe Montreal's not that cool. I don't know.
He hustled and he flyered like 3 high schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like when it comes to flyering, you know François Ouellet.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
he helped me set up the Michael interview actually.
Yeah, and so I met him through flyering. And he's Arch Enemy's tour manager. So, so that's a cool little Montreal connection also. But yeah, you asked how have I been dealing with it? I have
Filling
been
the void, of being on
filling the
stage.
void and getting that adrenaline rush. It's been honestly pretty much through releasing singles and through my Patreon page, because I do live streams there too, and I'm also like, it's so connected that it does feel like kind of like a small venue filled with, you know, those people. So that's been really, really helping me get through it.
One last question. I typically wrap up with a hangover cure, but that won't apply here. So let's jump into my backup one, which is what has been the best part, the silver lining of the pandemic for you?
It just sucks. I want it to be over. There's no silver lining. It's all black clouds. No, I would say it's the fact that I was able to write so many songs and record so many songs. Because normally my year is so consumed with touring that is something that doesn't get to happen necessarily. Because even, you know, like if you have 2 weeks off from tour, like it's kind of hard to get into the songwriting mode in just 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, like you come home, you gotta like do your laundry, like figure out what to do. Like, you know, it's like weird. You have this weird feeling. You think you see like your guitar tech, and then you're like, wait, he doesn't live in this city. What? That's not him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a weird environment. So I think the silver lining for me personally would be that I got to explore and appreciate Quebec more, like Quebec, the province. And I was able to be really productive with songwriting.
I'm looking forward to hearing it all.
What about you? What's yours?
Been hammering through the podcast and very, very lucky to spend so much time with my family. 2 young kids now.
You have 2 young kids?
2 young kids now.
Oh, congrats.
So very nice to spend some time with them. The yin and the yang of my life of going on tour and coming home. Mostly a lot of home recently. I could use the other side. Yeah. It's gonna come back soon. Alissa, thank you so much for taking the time, hanging out with me, talking about your life, talking about music, talking about a bunch of amazing things that you got coming up. It was an absolute true pleasure. Massive cheers to you, and I can't wait.
Cheers.
To do this again. Cheers.
All right, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right today. And you know that I love and appreciate that. Man, did I ever have a killer time reconnecting with Alissa. It has been so long that we've known each other, but it has been quite some time that we hadn't actually sat down and had a conversation together. I am very stoked that we did, because this was amazing. I'm very, very stoked about the new Archenemy album, Deceivers, and I'm even more stoked to hear that Alissa has been doing some more clean vocals on this record, which is something that she's so very good at, and I think it is time to put some of those clean vocals on Archenemy. That's my personal opinion. I like that. Massive cheers to Alissa for hanging out with me. It was an absolute blast, and I cannot wait to hang out again. If you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcasts mailing list. You can do that on my website, voxandhops.com. That's VOXANDHOPS.com. And when you do that, you shall receive 1 email a week containing all of the details of everything that has happened throughout the past week in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, including all the info for any episodes which I drop throughout that week. If I've been a guest on anyone else's podcast, you will also get all of the information for any projects that I have in the works. Before I announce them to the public, you will get to see all of the album reviews that the album review crew have dropped that week, and you will see which albums the metal architect himself, Jerry Monk, has added to the Brutal Awakenings playlist, which is available on both Apple Music and Spotify. Now, there's just so much going on in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast. I would hate for you to miss a single thing, so please sign up to the mailing list. The Vox and Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Soundtella Media and Evergreen Podcasts. I hope you have a glorious, glorious rest of the week. But most importantly, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.